what these mean is your skill set in the three most important areas of business: sales, marketing, and whether you're an organizer, a facilitator, or a manager, whatever you're going to call it. I call it facilitator. One, that your skill set is pretty much almost non-existent, or you just don't know, right? Like some people say, I haven't sold, but I might be good at sales, like you said, right? So you don't know because you haven't really explored the territory. So that would put you at 1 if you don't know, right? So 10, obviously, being that you're an amazing salesperson, you know that you have the track record, not because you think you are good at it. You've sold a lot of stuff. Same thing with marketing. If you don't know that you're good, or if you are not good, then I want everyone to give yourself some kind of rating here. And the facilitator is, you might not be good at any of one of this, but people around you tell you that you're a good organizer. You can do like discipline, like our accounting team here, right? So you guys are definitely this. You'll figure out this and this to see what level you're at, but this should be really high at your profession for you to be successful. So some people are super fortunate, or they've worked on it. They're good at all three, and that's perfectly fine. Most people, unless you've been working on it for at least a decade, because that's usually how long it takes on certain skills to develop over 8. So you got to give yourself a rating. And based on this, we're going to talk about how to structure your business properly, and that will determine what you take away from these 2 days. Because everyone's takeaway will be different, and it needs to be that way, right? So if your sales skill is 1 or less than 1, marketing is 1 and less than 1, and based on the intros in the morning, I think that represents the majority of the room here, at least 60% or so, right? So it might not be 1, but like 1 to 3 in that lower bracket. So what do you do? Well, we'll talk about that. If you're 10 in sales, but your marketing is 1, what do you do? So we're going to talk about different combinations to help you figure out. And we're not going to go through each person, but I'll take questions on certain things if you're having difficulty figuring it out. Because there are different ways to grow this business, and why that is so is that we're in an industry that's in high demand. So people want money. They will always want money. That will not change. But the form they get the money in will change. The vehicles will change. I've been talking about ERTC, Daniel and I just talked about it. That's a newer form of making money for you guys and for the customers to receive money. And there are other tax credits that you can get involved with, especially the accounting team. That's very relevant, easy segue for you guys to talk about it to your customers without getting into the loans. We have MCAs. We have about a dozen products. But products that are relevant. Even if the government kills one of the products, something else will replace itself. That's the economy of demand. Unless you kill the demand, you can kill the product. It will automatically be replaced with something else. That's just how things work. So do not be concerned yourself of what could happen to MCA, SBA, ERTC. So I had people questioning like, oh, what happens after 2 years? Then when the ERTC expires? Don't worry about that. And the reason is you're over-concerning yourself on something that might and might not happen, because there will always be something else. Like if you follow the U.S. government for the past 50 years, they always had funds available, grants available, something available for businesses to get, and they needed facilitators for that to happen, and those guys always make money because the demand is already there. Unless there is something happens that people don't need money anymore, which I can't think of a reason that would happen. So decide what your skill set is. Let's say you're at 2 here, maybe 3 here, then maybe you don't know, right? So let's take your worst case scenario. You're like, I have no idea. I've been told either way. In some things that I've done, I was a great organizer and I put together great, like Thanksgiving parties. When it comes to business, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like 2. So is this like a hopeless situation? You can't build this business? No, not really. So we have to decide out of those 3, which one you want to be. That's one question I asked a few of you as you're doing the intros, right? Because it's very difficult to, and I'm going to do this little circles, and we're going to get deeper and deeper into the math part. This is what you need to figure out. So this represents your interests, your personal interests. We're all grown-ass adults, right? So we have interests in certain things, and you have this business, lending. This kind of segues into the niche, because I get a ton of questions on every weekly call almost on what niche to choose. So you need to find something that combines these 2, right? Your interest and you're in the lending industry, so this is already chosen. You chose to be in this industry. You have your personal interest. I don't know, maybe you play guitar, you play football, and you like dancing, or you like talking to people, whatever it is. I want everyone to make a list of all of these things. And sometimes for people like me, I think I have very few interests other than business. It takes me a while to figure it out, right? Because other people from age 5, they develop a crap ton of interest. For me, the broadest form of my interest is anything business related, but that was not enough. I've done this exercise myself. Like within business, what do I like? Well, I like teaching. I like talking about business, like having those conversations. I like staying focused on a certain topic. So that all goes under one broad topic of I have no interest other than business. That's not really true, right? We all have interests. So you make a list of that. Lending is the industry that we're in. This is the collection of different products and lending options. The happy medium here, what is it? And this determines your niche. If you like eating out and you enjoy understanding how a restaurant business is run, you're in the lending industry, that helps you. People who like numbers, you like lending. Well, maybe you don't really need to be in the sales and marketing. You can be the back-end processor of your own company and help people bring in the traffic, and you just run the company, manage that. So this is going to ultimately answer, and you might not get an answer in a few minutes for this one. Some people know this already because that's just who they are. Others, it'll take a while to figure that out. But this will ultimately determine the niche that you're inclined towards, right? That will help you. And niching down in this industry for long term is super important. We kind of touched on this with Daniel. If you want to be acquired by another company at some point, you cannot be a generalist. They're not going to come in and buy Daniel Diaz, buy Oz Konar, because then we're pretty much selling ours. He has to come with the package. What do I do with the business? I got to have him. But if he's niching down and equipment leasing, and he built the processes, he built the CEO, even though it's a small company, so you have the entire system in place. This industry has seen a lot of those acquisitions. There'll be more of that. So the day of building a company from scratch and taking it to 7-8 figures is over in the books of hedge funds, right? There are a lot of companies with a lot of money. What they're doing is they're doing strategic buyouts, because that's the fastest way to acquire experience. It might take me 15 years to reach his level, but if I buy his company, it's operational, it's profitable, and is working right now, and I can acquire that experience and start monetizing on it. So and we'll see a lot of acquisitions in our industry in the next 10 years. So if you're obviously making money up front is good, but if you want to exit out at some point, niching will be vitally important. So important, right? So you have to find out what it is that you're going to focus on. And this might take 6 months, a year. Sometimes it takes a few years to figure out. It took me, I started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2014. Business Lending Blueprint, the old name Merchant Cash Advance, wasn't released until 2018. I remember many sleepless nights just trying to figure out, what am I going to do with myself? I'm not good at anything. I suck. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. You have this self-talk. And it took literally 4 years to come up with a solution. Even when I came up with it, I didn't believe in it as much as my employees did back then. My staff was like, we got something here. I'm like, who's going to listen to me? This is crazy. Just we record a bunch of stuff. Then we sold 38 units in one day. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? And the feedback, we took a lot of feedback. So again, don't rush this, but know that, in the back of your mind, you need to figure this out. This is super important. And don't underestimate the size of small numbers, because when someone looks at a niche, they look at an industry there are only so many businesses. Do not ever underestimate that. That's so important. I have a few friends who were just doing marketing for orthodontists, a category of dentistry, right? You would think it's a small niche. One of them sold their company for $24 million after 3 years because he was so focused on generating leads for them. There are a million other marketing agencies that claim they can generate leads for the service industry, for chiropractors, for dentists, and everyone else in the book. But the people that I've seen, they just focused on one area and they just focused on it for a long periods of time, made that business successful. Trust me, someone out there is looking for that. I come across a lot of people in this industry with a lot of money. One of our partners, they reached out to us recently, and Cenk knows that. They said, listen, we have a lot of money. We don't know what to do with it. It's a good problem to have. They are in a position to bring traffic on demand. They can run ads, but they're just accumulating cash. They're looking for stuff to buy. And they wanted to get my advice on it, and we talked about it. But that's a good position to be in. There are companies like that literally within our industry watching some of your businesses. That they're watching the blueprint, they're watching what's happening, they're watching up and growing lenders and partners to put their money in because they just have a lot of it. They just don't know what to do with it. And that's only one relatively small size partner that we have. So the name of the game, if you want to exit out at some point, either you acquiring a niche industry, you make a lot of money, then you make strategic acquisitions in certain industries, or someone else comes in and they get you. This is midterm to long-term thinking. Now, how it relates to what we do here is, well, how you structure this will determine where you end up. So some of you already started focusing on ERTC. That's the niche industry, right? The benefit to it, you customize your entire marketing around that one product, which requires confidence in that product. Then you become really attractive to people who are just looking for that. Because it's one thing if I'm talking to everybody, right? So let's say we're all on the street. I go, hey, and no one looks at me. If I say, Lily, she will look at me because I'm very specific to her, right? Because if I do the other way, everyone thinks I'm crazy. I'm just screaming. But in other ways, if I'm calling out somebody. So that's like same thing as niching. So how you structure this, again, if that's your goal, if you just want to make 10, 15K a month and continue doing that for the next 5 years and you don't know what's next, that's perfectly fine too. You know, not everyone needs to plan for the next 20, 30, whatever, 5, 10 years. But I want to show you how it is done. If you decide to do it, then you can do this. So let's go through the specifics of this. If you want to exit out at some point, initially you can be the star of the game, but long term you cannot be, because again, you can't be bought out with the company. Other companies will invest in the structure, the marketing, the automation, the team that you have. So you'll stay on the team for probably a year, year and a half. When someone buys Daniel, he's not going to just exit out and leave the building, right? They're going to make him sign a contract for probably 24 to 36 months. It could be less, it could be more, for him to do the transition. When he does it, and the compensation is modeled that way. So let's say they're paying him $15 million. They can pay $5 million up front, $5 million, a year into it, and the remaining $5 million at the end of the contract, so he can exit out and be clean and transfer the company, right? So depending on what your goals are, you'll decide how to do this. Let's go back to our original question. What happens if you're lower on this end, sales and marketing? So you have a few options. One is the obvious one, learn it, right? Like I mentioned at the beginning of our talk today, you just take a list of people, because experience in sales will come from volume. You just got to do your volume. You got to do your work, right? Do the boring work, boring or scary, whatever you call it. Just keep doing it, learn it. But then the learning process, it won't take you from 1 to 10 in a short amount of time. If you're at 6 already and you're enjoying this is pretty good, then practice in this situation helps. Because if you're at 6, that means you're somewhat enjoying it. Maybe you don't have enough experience, it will help you. But if you're at 1 or 2, for you to get to 6, it can be 1 to 2 years. So you got to make that decision. Do I want to jump from 1 to 6? And it takes, again, like you said, depending on how much investment you're making yourself, buying courses, following people, a lot of practice, because you're not going to learn how to swim by reading a book on swimming, right? You have to jump in there. This is the same thing. You can't learn something philosophically, haven't done it. So it's not going to make any difference for you. Same thing with the marketing. Most people will fall into this area, 1 to 3. If you follow at least a portion of the blueprint, you know more than the most common person. You're probably at 3. So you understand LinkedIn, duck soup. You might not have applied it, but you understand how it works. You can, in your mind, you can create a mental diagram, a mental frame, a reference in your mind that this is how it works. And the decision is, what do I do? Do I invest in marketing? The problem is, people come into the blueprint, they want to take this to 10, they want to take this to 10, and they want to take this to 10. How do they try to do it? They just join the blueprint and call all the lenders. They try to apply to all of them because they want to facilitate something that they don't have. You don't have any deals, you don't have any relationships, you don't have anything going on. They come into the blueprint, they want to just be masters at all of that, right? that's a sure way to fail. That's just, it will take you forever. You'll confuse the heck out of yourself, first of all. And it's going to be very painful because if you're low on all three categories, even just this by itself takes some time. And you're adding more complications, and then you burn out and you quit. And you do that for 3 other types of businesses that you tried to start in the past, then you build the mindset of being a failure. That's when you hear stuff like from other people, oh, I tried everything, nothing works. And if you ask them the deeper questions, they actually do believe that they tried it because they did try a lot of the stuff and it doesn't work. But they didn't stay focused on what they need to focus on first. Because human mind is not really good at mastering multiple things. You don't see someone mastering how to become a heart surgeon and also be great at building buildings. They're not, it doesn't happen, right? So it requires a lot of time to be great at one thing. So in your business, you have to decide what you're going to focus on.